Hello and welcome to Fix It, the podcast by the Fix Media where we unpack media insights and take you behind the scenes of editorial decisions, strategy, and innovation in the industry. I am Eliza and I will be your host today. Before we dig in, follow, subscribe, and show us some love at thefix.media. In this episode, we're joined by Anton Protsiuk, senior editor at the Fix Media. Anton is a seasoned media analyst whose work spans outlets like The Fix, Ukrainska Pravda, The Kyiv Independent, Detector Media, Bird in Flight, and many more. He's also deeply engaged in the global Wikimedia movement. Today, we'll dive into what's new at the Fix magazine and how Anton and the team are thinking about editorial strategy in today's complex media landscape. So let's get started. Hi, Anton. Great to have you on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you a lot for inviting me.
We are very pleased to have you here. So you have worked with a range of respected outlets across Europe and Ukraine, I see. So can you tell us a bit about your background and what actually brought you to your current role as a senior editor at The Fix?
Yes, of course. So I've spent the past decade working, I would say, at the intersection of journalism, media innovation, and open knowledge, starting with Wikipedia, with the global Wikimedia movement, and later also contributing to various media outlets, and also launching my own pet media project as a hobby. So all of this combination brought me to the Fix 5 years ago as a contributing author. So I joined the Fix in 2020 as a contributing writer. And then a couple of years later, in 2022, as some other key members of the team focused on other projects, such as launching the Fix support programs for Ukrainian media in the wake of Russia's full-scale invasion. I stepped up to be senior editor, overseeing the editorial team, and that's what I have been doing ever since.
So now, through this experience, you can tell us what is new, what is changing at the Fix magazine this year.
What's not changing is that The Fix is a media industry magazine for European media leaders, European media professionals. We've been working for over 5 years and have a lot of big plans ahead. And I would say that we have two big goals for this year. The first one is just highlighting more fresh ideas and undercovered stories from outlets from across Europe and beyond. I really think about these questions like who is building the next big media company in Bulgaria or Austria or Hungary? How are small Hungarian media outlets monetizing themselves in harsh conditions? Who has figured out a sustainable business model in Norway or in Sweden or in Malta? Who is successfully monetizing in-person events in Ukraine and so on, right? So we would like to highlight more of these undercovered, interesting case studies from across Europe. But the second goal that ties to it is also introducing our own reader revenue model. So we've just redesigned our website to look fresher and more modern. And in the coming weeks and months, we will be asking our readers to support the Fix Media if they have gotten something useful from our work over the past 5 to 6 years. Uh, we would invite our readers to support us. Much of our coverage will remain free to read, but we will also offer access to exclusive insights and conversations with media leaders to our members as part of these changes.
Well, that sounds exciting. And I'm sure that people would really like to support this kind of journalism. And about the cases that you mentioned before, we can see a variety of different themes that resonate with media professionals. Do you think you could tell us about some of the most engaging topics that you've covered recently?
We really want to offer practical advice and real life examples for media leaders, right? So some of our best work is highlighting case studies of different European media outlets, the challenges they have faced, and the interesting new solutions they have found. For example, two of my favorite recent stories published by the Fixed Media are about the Italian magazine Internazionale, which defies the decline of print media which is a thriving print magazine in the age of digital media and the age of AI. And then the second story, which is one of my favorite ones, is how a former editor at The Guardian is building a sustainable one-man local newsletter about London. London is an interesting news market. London is an interesting local news market because, on the one hand, it's such a big and important city, but on the other hand, there are not that many uh, local outlets that cover London as a city. So uh, there is a really interesting newsletter that has sprung up to cover it, and that's what they covered at the Fix. Uh, Another thing is we are also trying to cover emerging trends that might help media leaders make better decisions. For example, we recently published a piece on whether European publishers should use Substack for their newsletters. It's a trend that's emerging in the United States of legacy publishers launching their own side newsletters on Substack, and we looked at whether it's something that makes sense for European publishers as well. And of course, AI is one of the biggest topics on everyone's mind, and we are covering AI from various angles. So, both looking at practical advice for newsrooms to integrate AI tools in their workflow, and also thinking about more wide-ranging implications of the shifts brought about by AI. For example, the decline of the search traffic. For an example of on the water, I recently wrote a short essay for our newsletter, noting down 5 thoughts and predictions on the future of AI in news. But we really tried to balance this more of theoretical essays with practical case studies of how specific outlets, especially in Europe, are integrating AI in their work.
Yeah, well, I do have to say that every time I read a story, I read an article, it looks like there is some kind of new idea. So every time there is something new and something that, well, for me, I probably have never thought before. So people are trying to, they are trying to grow in journalism with so many different ways. And I think that this is what is very interesting today, and this is what you're offering. Let's go to the next question. And from an editorial perspective, how does the team prioritize when selecting topics or stories to publish?
I would say that we have 3 important principles when thinking about what to cover. So the first one is, does the story have a European perspective? There are a lot of media about media in the United States. America is a really big and interesting and important market that all of us are following, both the Fix and our audience. But we also want to bring more undercovered stories from Europe. We think that the American market is covered well enough, but the European industry is not covered well enough, and that's what we were created to fix. Forgive the pun. The second principle is whether this story is useful for media managers. We are happy to have a lot of journalists, a lot of freelancers, media students, and other media folks reading us, but our core target audience is managers in the media industry, people who are making decisions on various levels, and we really think a lot about whether this or that story we are publishing is interesting for media managers. And the third principle is, does this story offer some practical insights for media managers? It doesn't have to be a very detailed practical guide, but we want the reader to get something useful out of it. It might be an insight on how to do their job better, or they might just send a Slack message to their team after reading the article, asking them to try something, asking them to experiment with a solution we've covered. That's a great example of the impact we would like to have.
So, is there a difference between some urgent, let's say, industry trends or like evergreen insights? And how do you balance between the two?
Our focus gives us the luxury not to have an urgent news operation. We are not covering news minute to minute, hour to hour, uh, because of the nature of the fixed media as an industry magazine. Of course, sometimes big change does happen quickly. So, for example, the pandemic was a big trend early into the fix's existence. The fix was founded in late 2019, and just a few months later, the global pandemic struck, and we were really covering how it impacted the news industry. Or another example is Trump shutting down USAID. It also happened quite quickly. I think a lot of people suspected that something like that would happen, but certainly not a lot of people thought it would happen so rapidly, so quickly in January of 2025. So this urgent changes sometimes do happen quickly, but more often than not, the industry trends that define our field are long-term ones. They unfold over the years, and if we write a trend piece, what's defining the news media industry in 2024, there is a big possibility that it will be also relevant in 2025 as well. So trends like AI impacting search traffic, trends like young people tuning out of traditional media channels, or news consumption turning towards video, and so on and so forth. So on the one hand, we do think about how to stay timely and relevant. We do regularly monitor media news, we make news ourselves, but on the other hand, we have a bias towards offering evergreen insights rather than urgent stories. We are also trying to walk the talk on one of the big pieces of advice we give to media leaders, which is making use of archival content, right? Regularly resurfacing the stories you had published months and years before when they become relevant. It's a piece of advice we give to others, and it's a piece of advice we try to follow ourselves.
Like in the episode. Sounds like we're a great match, and we couldn't be happier. If you'd like to strengthen our bond, support us by donating or joining our membership program. That's it. No more interruptions. Back to the episode.
Okay, so you mentioned uncovering older stories that are more relevant and timely at this moment. So, do you think that you could offer some more insight on that? Like, what exactly do you mean? Could you give us an example?
Yes, so I think a big opportunity that media leaders often leave on the table is just monetizing the archive of stories published previously, right? A lot of media organizations have a big archive of articles that have been written before and that just sit out there, and can be used. Of course, if it is a news story, if it is some quick news story, it cannot be reused easily. But if it is an analysis article, it's probably relevant a couple of years from now as well. So it is a good practice to sometimes remind about archival articles on social media, to resurface it in our newsletters, and we do have a practice. So, for example, once a month we publish a special edition newsletter, which is resurfacing some of our archival content on one specific topic. Sometimes it is also good practice to republish previous articles, to update them and republish them when something new has happened. So, for example, we have a listicle with recommending media newsletters to follow, to read about, and sometimes we just update it, maybe remove the newsletters that have shut down, add new newsletters that have launched, and resurface, republish this story.
Okay, that sounds great. So sometimes you are right too early and you have been able to foresee some things happening. That's amazing. Now, maybe let's move a little bit more to the editorial strategy and evolution. So, from an editor's perspective, How do you keep the content fresh and innovative while maintaining consistent editorial direction, you think?
To keep our coverage fresh, I would say I have a couple of principles. First is read really widely, right? So follow what is happening by reading stories from our competitors, which is an obvious part, like stories from other media about media, but also other channels as well. So LinkedIn is a really important channel to read and to follow some obscure substacks, Twitter, and so on. You never know where you will find a fresh insight, so reading and following a lot of different channels is an important piece of advice. But second is speaking with interesting people. Nothing beats a conversation with an insightful media practitioner. An interesting conversation is worth a lot of articles. So I do try to speak with a lot of people, both in person and by inviting them to calls, to industry meetings, one-on-one calls, and so on. And the third principle is just working with the best people. I really love the Fixes model of having contributors from all across Europe, whether it's Germany or Georgia or Denmark or Spain or Portugal. We do not have full-time writers, full-time authors. Sometimes it is a limitation when we need to cover something urgent, but more often than not, it is a huge advantage because all of our authors have their own experience, have their own background. Often they have their own main job, often in the media industry. So they are bringing all of that to the table and bringing all of the perspectives, and that really helps make our coverage fresh and interesting.
When there are so many people, though, talking about trends and things, is it hard for you sometimes to find a fresh angle to by inviting new people to talk about certain topics and bring actually new ideas into it? How do you experience it?
I would say that, of course, it is always a challenge to find fresh angles, and it's something that I spend a lot of my time thinking about. But here, actually, inviting new people really helps a lot, and covering their practical examples helps a lot. So, for example, AI is a really big topic everyone is talking about, and sometimes the points are really obvious and quite repetitive. This point that AI won't take your job, but a person who uses AI will take your job. It's like the most overused cliche in the AI field right now. But but if we can find a practical example of a specific media outlet that has implemented an interesting AI solution, that's a fresh angle. So, for example, we recently published a story of the biggest news publisher in Greenland using an AI tool to quickly translate stories into the indigenous language of Greenland. It's a really interesting example. It also illustrates one of the points I think a lot about is how AI is breaking down language barriers and how it helps publishers, but also news consumers. But this specific example of Greenland, which is not the most widely covered media market we think about a lot, right? I don't think that we read a lot of news stories about the media market in Greenland, but this specific article, this specific angle was really refreshing and interesting to cover, and I hope for our readers to check.
Yeah, I read the story. It is really, really very interesting. Okay, and do you think that you have noticed a shift in audience response or engagement as the magazine has grown?
I would say that our growth and the patterns of our growth mirror wider media trends, especially the shift towards direct audience relationships. When we launched the Fix Media 5 or 6 years ago, Twitter was a big platform for us. A lot of people found us over Twitter. But then, since Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, it declined for us, but also I think for many of other media outlets as well. In terms of social platforms, LinkedIn was the one platform that replaced Twitter. For us, we have a big presence on LinkedIn, which is really geared towards professionals. We are also experimenting with other social channels like TikTok, but also at the same time, we are shifting towards, and we have shifted towards direct audience relationships. For us, our weekly newsletter that comes out every Monday has become our most important audience channel. It's where we see the strongest engagement, and it has helped us build a consistent, predictable two-way connection with our readers.
Mm-hmm. And but did you have any challenges though? Like, are there editorial challenges that you face when you're curating the content for a publication that speaks directly to media professionals?
I would say that the biggest challenge is something we've already talked a bit about, is just not repeating yourself while reinforcing key trends, right? So media professionals already follow a lot, and I don't want to be preaching to the choir. I don't want to tell them what they already know, but at the same time, am I sure that they already know this, right? Am I sure that they would not benefit from reinforcing some trend or learning about something from a fresh perspective? So, for example, when we are talking about the decline of trust in news or news avoidance, on the one hand, I think that uh, practically all media managers have heard about this as a general trend. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to just repeat this general point that trust in news is declining, news avoidance is rising, and so on. But if I can find an interesting perspective, maybe an interesting new startup that has managed uh, to thwart this rise in news avoidance, or maybe an interesting analysis piece with a fresh perspective from a media leader, that's something I'm really interested in bringing to our readers.
Yeah, well, that sounds very insightful because you're using a case study for each angle that you're covering, and this is actually bringing more value to the reader. And now, maybe looking forward, what do you think that readers can expect? What is next from the Fix magazine? Are there any experiments or new formats or collaborations on the horizon?
So I've already mentioned that we are building out our own reader revenue model, and that's what we will be working a lot about, how we can work with our readers to both support them in their work, but also uh, get them to support us. And another point is we are thinking about how we can keep up with media consumption trends and deliver our work in the format that works best for our readers. And maybe even readers is the wrong word here, right? Maybe they should be listeners or viewers, but not readers. We're still figuring it out. Should we double down on podcasts like the one we are doing right now? Should we do more industry events? Should we invest more resources in our YouTube channel? Maybe we should start a Discord server. I don't know. We are still thinking about it, and we are experimenting a lot, seeing some things work, some things not work. But we are also happy to get feedback from our listeners, from our audience, on what they would like to see us do and in what format they would like to see us do it.
Right. Yes. We have been experimenting a lot, and I think that this is great because we are learning a lot as well, and we have also heard feedback, and we're wishing for more. So, Anton, please tell me one advice that you would give to journalists or editors who want to shift toward more analytical and industry-facing storytelling. How do you do it?
My first point of advice is just to think whether you really need it. There is a lot of navel gazing in the media industry. There is a lot of media industry covering the media industry itself. So maybe your time would be better spent serving a wider non-media audience. But on a more serious note, if you are really interested in shifting towards industry-facing storytelling, I would suggest a couple of things. First, to gain some experience in the media industry yourself, and then draw from your experience while covering the industry, because it's always more interesting to hear from people who've had first-hand knowledge. And the other thing is start thinking about how media organizations really work from the inside, how they are structured, who is making decisions, how is the money being made. There are a lot of interesting dynamics within media organizations that we at the Fix are really interested in covering, and I think that are crucial for covering the media industry, or for that matter, any other industry.
Well, that's great advice. Well, now we're moving towards the end. But before we go, let's do a quick fire round. So you did this thing where you actually debuted the fixed first printed edition in Perugia this year. What was that experience like, and what were you thinking?
It's a wonderful feeling for an online only media to see yourself in print for the first time. A lot of publishers are experimenting with upscale print magazines, uh, from The Verge in the United States to The Kiev Independent in Ukraine. And it's something I'm interested in as well for the future. But for Perugia, we did something else. We did a very short, brief newspaper that you could read maybe while waiting in a line somewhere, or drinking your morning cappuccino in a cafe while enjoying your Italian ice cream. So this format has its benefits. People actually read it, right? It's not a magazine that sits on the table waiting to be read, but it's actually something people can read and get quick insight from. So I'm really happy we did it, and I think both ourselves we will try to experiment more with such formats in the future, but also other publishers can think about how they can bring the reporting to new formats, especially in print where it is strategically useful.
Right. From my perspective, it was a great experience as well, because I was there and I was drinking my cappuccino on, and on an Italian cafe, and it was a beautiful experience. Also, seeing people around, as you mentioned, in queues, and they were holding the newspaper. Great experience overall. So now, lastly, what is buzzing in the media scene right now? What's one topic everyone is talking about? Could you give us some insights?
Let me give you a couple of topics that are important but not being talked about enough, and that I either have covered on the fix or would like to cover. Uh, the first one is about AI rapidly bringing down language barriers. It's something I've already mentioned today, but I think it's especially important for a continent like Europe, where we have dozens of languages from Hungarian and Greek to Bulgarian and German. Uh, Building a large pan European publisher has always been a daunting task, one that we have, I would say that it's one of the themes of the Fixes coverage from the very beginning, is how hard it is to actually build a pan European and all European publisher. And I think that AI will be really helpful here. The second topic is the huge and undercovered power of Google Discover. Google Discover is a major source of traffic for publishers, especially now that the Google search traffic is declining. But few publishers really know how it works from the inside. It's somewhat of a black box, and I would really love to cover it more. And the third topic that's on my mind is how AI vibe coding services can democratize access to previously complex technical tools in newsrooms that often lack resources that are often stripped of resources. I really think AI coding tools can democratize access to more complex technical tools.
Oh, that's very interesting. Especially the last one I never thought about. Anton, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspective here. That's all for now. Follow The Fix, subscribe to Fixed, and if you want to help us grow, head over to thefix.media and join our membership family.